I was sent by my university to study abroad for a year. My fiancée, who had sworn she loved only me, found a look-alike substitute in the 3rd month I was gone. I saw him shamelessly sharing their sweet daily life on his social media feed. I saw my fiancée, who had always been an untouchable ice queen with me, shower him with endless affection. They say the one who isn't loved is the third wheel. Victoria, what am I to you? I saw my fiancée's reply, "You, of course, are the love of my life." Then the man pulled my fiancée into a deep kiss, and the video ended. I called her, only to be met with a curt, "I'm busy." Suddenly I felt there was no point in trying to salvage this. But later, my fiancée flew halfway across the world to win me back, begging me to give her another look. Chapter 1. The early autumn wind was already carrying a slight chill, but as I stood at the airport entrance, listening to the dial tone on my phone, I felt that no wind could be colder than the ice in my heart. Victoria Sutherland still wasn't answering. I just stood there, holding my phone until the call automatically disconnected, before I finally snapped back to reality. It was the 18th call I had made to her, and she still hadn't responded. She hadn't even replied to the messages I sent before boarding my flight. I scrolled up through our chat history. The frequency of Victoria's replies had slowed to a crawl, and her words had become more and more sparse. "I'm very busy. I'm at work." Phrases like these had become her standard way of brushing me off. But the old Victoria wasn't like this. Back then, no matter how late she worked, she would always wish me good night before bed. I took a deep breath, my fingertips trembling. It took an eternity to finally tap on that unfamiliar chat window. The dim lighting in the video couldn't hide the pale, naked bodies. That flushed face was so painfully familiar to me. Her familiar voice echoed from the phone once more. Even though I had already seen the video, a cold shiver still ran down my spine. "Vicky, big sis, do you know who I am? Are you still thinking about him? How could I be? He's not half the man you are. Ethan, slow down, baby. Wait." I fumbled to close the video, my vision blurring. A heavy weight pressed down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I felt like a wind-up toy on the verge of breaking down, making its last desperate twitches. This person had added me as a contact last night. He hadn't said a word, just sent me this video. I recognized her instantly. The woman moaning softly was my fiancée, Victoria, but I couldn't bring myself to believe it. The woman who had tearfully proposed to me 3 months ago, slipping, a ring on my finger as I left the country, had moved on so quickly. Over these 3 months, Victoria had indeed grown cold, but I had chalked it up to the normal challenges of a long-distance relationship, coupled with her demanding job. I never thought much of it. Only now did it dawn on me. It wasn't that she was too busy with work. It was that someone else was taking up all her time. That's why she had no time to deal with me. I spent the entire night scrolling through this man's social media feed. He bore a striking resemblance to me, about 80% similar, but our personalities were polar opposites. Perhaps because of my upbringing, I'm reserved and not one for sweet talk. Victoria often said I was as exciting as a wooden post, completely lacking in passion. But this man was nothing like me. He and Victoria had traveled to so many places, leaving a commemorative video at each stop. Some were places Victoria and I had been to. Others were places we had talked about visiting, but never got around to. But they all had one thing in common. At the end of each video, Victoria would wrap her arms around the man and shout at the camera with a smile, "I, Victoria Sutherland, swear the only man I'll ever love is Ethan Ford. Ethan Ford." That was the man's name. And me? What was I? I didn't know the answer to that question, and it was clear Victoria had no intention of letting me find out. In the taxi on the way home, I finally got a call from Victoria. Unfortunately, the moment I answered, I wasn't met with an explanation, but with her shrill accusations. "Sincere Harrison, what the hell do you think you're doing? Who gave you permission to fly back without saying a word?" In that moment, it was hard to describe my feelings. I was like a drowning man who had just found a piece of driftwood. But as I swam closer, I realized the wood was rotten from being soaked for too long. The slightest touch would be fatal. It couldn't possibly bear a person's weight. And just like that, I was plunged back into the boundless ocean. My breathing grew difficult, and only a wheezing sound escaped my lips when I tried to speak. Seeing my lack of response, Victoria muttered a few curses and hung up. My phone buzzed. Ethan Ford had sent me another video. This one was much clearer. I could even see it was filmed in the home Victoria and I shared. Victoria was sitting on the sofa, her face flushed, while Ethan knelt before her, his fingers busy doing something out of frame. When he looked up, a gasp escaped Victoria's lips. On Ethan's hand was a ring, glistening with a clear liquid. That was our wedding ring. Big sis, does it feel better with the ring on or off? You naughty boy, you just love to tease me. My breath caught in my throat. I looked down at my own finger. Engraved inside that ring were the initials of my name and Victoria's. Before I left the country, she had pleaded with me, telling me never to take it off no matter what. She said it would let other girls know I had a fiancé and they would keep their distance. I took her words to heart and never once disobeyed. I never imagined that, in her heart, this ring meant nothing at all. It was just so disgusting. Chapter 2. I still went back to the home I shared with Victoria. Looking at the familiar yet alien surroundings, my mind couldn't help but conjure images of Victoria and Ethan. I pictured them in the kitchen, cooking and cuddling, with Ethan wrapping his arms around Victoria's waist from behind, making her laugh flirtatiously. I pictured them after dinner, lying on the sofa watching a movie, and when the mood was right, Ethan would press her down onto the cushions and kiss her body. I pictured them moving from the sofa to the bedroom, their bodies entwined, unwilling to let go. And none of this was just my imagination. It was all laid out in what Ethan had posted on his feed. The photos, the videos, in every one of them, Victoria's smile was so bright and radiant. It seemed he had been planning for me to find out about all of this from the very beginning. Ethan had documented every little thing between him and Victoria on his social media, and I, like a masochist, had watched it all over and over again on the way here. Now, whenever I thought of Victoria, the only image that came to mind was of her kissing Ethan. I remembered her lying in his arms, purring as she begged him for kisses. At 11 o'clock that night, the front door opened. Victoria was finally home. Seeing me on the sofa, Victoria froze for a second. Then a smile quickly spread across her face. She smiled at me with the same sweet, brilliant expression as before, as if nothing had happened. Sincere, why aren't you in bed yet? Were you waiting for me? Victoria spoke as she sat down next to me, reaching out to take my arm. She had always been clingy. When we were together, it was as if she had no bones in her body, always needing to be pressed up against me. I used to think it was a sign of her love for me. But after seeing the videos of her and Ethan, I realized that perhaps she just needed a man. I just happened to fit her criteria. But whether that man was me or someone else, she didn't care. I shifted my body, dodging her touch. The smile on Victoria's face stiffened for a moment, but she quickly composed herself. Are you still mad about what happened at the airport? I'm sorry, Sincere. I apologize. Something came up at the office that I had to deal with, and then you came back from abroad without a word, hiding it from me. Of course, I was a little upset. Victoria's tone was tinged with a playful pout, just like the tone she used in the video when she was begging Ethan to slow down. I frowned, forcing down the urge to vomit and curse. Seeing that I wasn't speaking, Victoria pulled a tie out of her bag. Look, a present for you. I bought this specially to cheer you up. Don't be mad at me anymore, Sincere. I stared at the tie and couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. Not just because I never wear suits, but because I had seen this tie before. This tie was the gift Victoria gave Ethan for their 2-month anniversary. Ethan had complained that the pattern was old-fashioned and he didn't like it. He only ever used it during their activities to tie Victoria's wrists. That's why the tie was so etched in my memory. I just never thought she would now give it to me. So in Victoria's eyes, am I only worthy of Ethan's cast-offs? And yet she was the one who held my hand and swore she would love me forever. Chapter 3. My story with Victoria began with her relentless pursuit. At the time, my mind was solely focused on my research. I had little interest in romance. But Victoria burst into my life like a scorching flame. I couldn't resist her passion, and I crumbled under her gaze, which was always filled with adoration. I even considered giving up my plans to study abroad. It was Victoria who persuaded me not to abandon my dreams, promising she would wait for me to come back. I thought she was genuinely supporting me. I never imagined that perhaps she was just waiting for me to leave so she could reveal her true colors. My cold reaction to the gift clearly displeased Victoria. She frowned, her tone laced with mockery. "Sincere Harrison, what's your problem? I went out of my way to buy you a gift to cheer you up, and this is the attitude I get? You spend a few months abroad and learn nothing except how to be as arrogant as the foreigners. I have things to do at the office. I don't have time to play house with you. I'm leaving." With that, Victoria stood up and strode towards the door. This was one of Victoria's favorite tactics. In the past, if I did anything that even slightly displeased her, she would pretend to leave, waiting for me to coax her back. I knew she was doing it on purpose, but because I loved her, I was willing to swallow my pride. But now, I sat motionless on the sofa, watching her back. My lips moved, and I finally spoke my first words since she had returned. "Victoria, where are our photos? The ones we took together." Her footsteps halted. She froze in place. I had noticed it as soon as I got home. The framed photos that used to be on the tables and hanging on the walls were all gone. With her back to me, Victoria's voice sounded a little guilty. "I accidentally broke them, so I threw the frames away." I couldn't help but laugh out loud, because I knew exactly where those photos had gone. The first time Ethan came to our house, he said looking at them made him unhappy. To appease him, Victoria had thrown all our pictures in the trash. I couldn't help but remember how much time and effort she had put into getting those perfect shots with me. When the photos were printed, her eyes had sparkled as she looked at them. She pressed the pictures to her chest as if they were the most precious jewels. Then she instructed me to place them in the most conspicuous spot in the house. "I want you to be able to see me and think of me all the time." I did as she said. But the person Victoria wanted to see all the time was no longer me. So a woman's heart really can change that quickly. The ones on the table broke, but the ones on the wall broke too? Hearing my question, Victoria whipped around. Her eyes were wide as she stared at me, her voice turning sharp, a clear attempt to mask her guilt with aggression. "Sincere Harrison, what are you implying? You come back and you're already suspicious of me. If you don't trust me, why are you even with me?" I watched her feigned outrage, suddenly recalling how she once swore she would never get angry with me. But how could words spoken in love possibly count for anything now? For some reason, I suddenly felt all my strength drain away, a wave of exhaustion washing over me. Let it be. I didn't know what else there was to say. In the silence between us, Victoria's phone vibrated with a notification, perhaps out of guilt or perhaps out of nervousness. Victoria's hand trembled, and she accidentally hit the speakerphone button. Ethan's voice echoed clearly through the room. "Big sis, bring that leopard print lingerie set when you come." Chapter 4. Victoria scrambled to shut off the voice message, but not before Ethan's words had filled the room. Her face went pale. She shot a look at me, her words tumbling out in a rush. "Sincere, let me explain. It's not what you think. She stammered on I, for what felt like an eternity but couldn't come up with anything coherent. I let out a cold laugh, helpfully offering her an excuse. "What? Are you going to tell me this guy is an underwear designer and he needed you to bring him lingerie for inspiration?" I wasn't aware the Sutherland family business had expanded into that market. I had never spoken to Victoria with such a sharp, sarcastic tone before I went. Abroad, we rarely even argued. We were the model couple in everyone's eyes. Victoria had a shy nature and was seldom overly affectionate with me in public. I respected her boundaries and had even told her that I wouldn't cross any lines before we were married. I just never thought that the same Victoria who would blush when I kissed her could be so wild with another man. Victoria wasn't a fool. She naturally caught the mockery in my tone. She bit her lip and said softly, "Sincere, trust me. I will give you an explanation." Throwing those words at me, she turned and fled, practically scrambling out the door. I sat on the sofa, looking down at my hands. I had already taken off the engagement ring before I even got home. Now, a faint pale line circled my finger, the only proof of how deeply I had once loved Victoria. But marks always fade, just like my love and disappointment for her. One day they would both be gone without a trace. That night, my mentor, Professor Albright, called me. The cheerful little old man who was always smiling in my presence was furious with me for the first time. He launched into a tirade over the phone, scolding me for abandoning my team and returning home, without a word at the most critical stage of our research, accusing me of having no team spirit. I knew my actions were somewhat childish and impulsive, but with some things left unresolved, I couldn't focus on my research. I promised him I would handle my family matters in the shortest time possible, and then return to the university to continue my work. The little old man was skeptical but ultimately chose to believe me. Since I had decided to make a clean break with Victoria, I went to her company first thing the next morning. It was a last resort, given that she wasn't answering my calls or replying to my messages. But before I could even reach her office, a man strode past me and barged right in, plopping down on the sofa. He brazenly kicked off his shoes right there in the office, then casually picked up a cup from her desk and chugged the contents. I froze on the spot, recognizing him immediately as Ethan Ford. But that wasn't what shocked me. What shocked me was that Victoria had mild OCD and never allowed anyone to touch her things. I remembered once I brought her a cake from far away, but because I was sweaty from the trip, she wrinkled her nose in disgust, threw the cake away, and said my sweat had contaminated it and she wouldn't eat it. For Victoria, I had changed many of my habits after we moved in together. I cleaned the house every day to ensure it was spotless. I was meticulous about not having the slightest unpleasant odor on me. But now Ethan's actions were so casual, it was obvious this wasn't his first time. His shoes were strewn in the walkway, and his bare feet were propped up on the sofa. Even I, someone without OCD, couldn't help but frown at the sight. But Victoria, she got up from her desk, walked over to Ethan, and not only showed no sign of disgust, but gently wiped the sweat from his forehead. "Where have you been? You're all sweaty. Weren't you tired?" Just as the words left her mouth, she seemed to sense something, turning her head towards the door and meeting my gaze. Victoria's hand froze in midair, and the smile in her eyes gradually turned to panic and dread. I smiled faintly and said softly, "Congratulations. You've found the love of your life." Chapter 5. I had no desire to say anything more to Victoria and turned to leave, but she rushed after me, grabbing my wrist. "Sincere, you misunderstood. He was just running an errand for me, so I was just showing a little concern. It's not what you think." Her voice was frantic. If I hadn't seen so many glimpses of her life with Ethan, I might have actually believed I had misunderstood her. Before I could speak, Ethan, who had followed Victoria, chimed in nonchalantly. "Yeah, bro, don't misunderstand big sis. She just couldn't bear to see me working so hard, so she took pity on me. Maybe she's just being nice to me because I look a little like you." Though his words were apologetic, his eyes and face were filled with mockery and pride. I heard the passive-aggressive tone in Ethan's voice and found it almost funny. I had often heard about and seen examples of manipulative, feigning innocence types online, but I never thought I'd meet one in real life. But clearly Victoria didn't see it that way. She nodded vigorously at Ethan's words. Yes, I was only looking at him because he looks like you, sincere. Really, you have. To believe me, I looked down at Victoria and forcefully pulled my hand away. Victoria, you know exactly what you're thinking. Before I went abroad, you told me that if I ever fell for another girl, you would leave me without a second thought. I'm saying the same words back to you now. Ignoring Victoria's panicked gaze, I strode out of her company. I went home to my parents, Robert and Helen Harrison, and told them I had decided to break off the engagement with Victoria. My parents were shocked by my decision. They knew how deep my feelings for Victoria were. Although Victoria had been the one to pursue me initially, once we were together, I had treated the relationship with the utmost seriousness. I would grant any request Victoria made, practically willing to pluck the stars from the sky for her. She was my first girlfriend, and I didn't know how to treat someone well. So I just used every method I could think of, all just to make her happy. Under my parents' questioning, I had no choice but to tell them the truth. My father was silent for a moment before saying, "Don't worry, son, we won't let you be wronged." In that moment, I felt like a child who hadn't yet come of age, and my eyes suddenly stung with tears. My father summoned Victoria's parents, Stephen and Martha Sutherland, to our house to discuss breaking off the engagement. Mr. and Mrs. Sutherland were very surprised and asked if there had been some misunderstanding. I still wanted to leave Victoria with some dignity in front of her parents, so I just said that the feelings between us were gone. But I never expected that Mr. Sutherland would not only refuse but also call Victoria over. He said that if there was a misunderstanding, it should be cleared up face to face. When Victoria first arrived, she looked annoyed, but when she heard I wanted to call off the engagement, her eyes widened in shock. "No, I don't agree, sincere Harrison. Did you find another woman abroad? Is that why you want to break up with me?" Faced with Victoria's attempt to turn the tables and accuse me, I found it utterly laughable. At this point, I no longer wanted to afford her that last shred of dignity. I looked at her with a cold smile and demanded, "Who's the one with someone else? You know perfectly well in your heart. Victoria, you can't have your cake and eat it too. I'm setting you free to be with your true love. Shouldn't you be happy?" Victoria's face darkened, and she gritted her teeth, looking absolutely furious. I understood why Victoria didn't want to break the engagement. Her mother, Martha, had married into the family as the other woman, driving out the original wife. If it weren't for her engagement to me, the position of head of the Sutherland family business would never have gone to Victoria. Breaking up with me would mean losing everything she now possessed, so Victoria couldn't take that risk. Her anger suddenly vanished, replaced by a pleading look in her eyes. "Sincere, I truly love you. Can you please give me another chance?" I looked into Victoria's eyes, feeling nothing at all. I remembered a time when my greatest fear was seeing her cry. "You really love me? You love me so much that you went to bed with another man?" At my words, both of Victoria's parents stared at her in utter shock. Victoria's lips trembled as she still tried to argue. I only did it because I love you so much. That's why I found a substitute who looks just like you." Listening to Victoria's words, I felt a sense of profound absurdity. In that instant, the image of Victoria I had held in my mind completely shattered. I finally had the courage to admit that perhaps I had never really known the woman I once loved. I stood up from the sofa. As far as I was concerned, this conversation was over. Looking into Victoria's eyes, I said, word by word, "I am breaking off this engagement." Chapter 6. I no longer cared about saving Victoria's face. I took out my phone and found my chat history with Ethan Ford. The moment the obscene video started playing, the expressions on everyone's faces changed. Even though I had seen it before, when Victoria's voice filled the room, a mocking sneer still crossed my face. "Is this what you call loving me? Victoria, when you were moaning his name, were you thinking of me then too?" Victoria clearly hadn't expected me to go this far. Her face was deathly pale. My father frowned and roared, "Stephen Sutherland, is this your wonderful daughter?" Stephen Sutherland was Victoria's father. He stood there with a grim face, silent. It was Victoria's mother, Martha, who spoke up nervously. "Mr. Harrison, perhaps it's a misunderstanding. You know kids are young. What if—" "Yes, she's young. I'd almost forgotten you were doing the same sort of thing at her age." My mother, Helen, cut Martha Sutherland off coldly. The woman's face went white, and she said no more. Being the other woman who breaks up a marriage isn't unheard of in our circle, but it is, after all, disgraceful. When Victoria first started pursuing me, I had judged her because of her mother's history. But at the time, Victoria had cried, saying she and her mother were two different people, and I shouldn't judge her based on her mother's actions. Back then, I had felt guilty about it for a long time. I just never imagined that she and her mother were cut from the same cloth. Mr. Sutherland, probably feeling utterly humiliated, shot up from his seat and said to Victoria, "Victoria, you have disappointed me so much. If this engagement is off, then the presidency will go to your brother." That single sentence drained all the color from Victoria's face. Mr. Sutherland left, but Victoria stayed. She strode over to me, grabbed my hand, and begged me to give her another chance. When I ignored her, Victoria's legs gave way, and she dropped to her knees in front of me. Her hands clutched the hem of my shirt, her eyes filled with a helpless, pleading gaze. "Sincere, sincere, I'm begging you. I really know I was wrong. Please give me one more chance. Just one." Her tone was so pitiful and sincere, but not an ounce of pity stirred in my heart, because I knew perfectly well that Victoria never thought she was wrong. She was just suddenly terrified after realizing the price she would have to pay for leaving me. I looked at the tears on Victoria's face and slowly pried my shirt from her grasp. "Victoria, what you need isn't another chance. It's a punishment." Amidst Victoria's sobs, I turned and walked upstairs without a backward glance. While the matter of our broken engagement was still being settled, Ethan Ford couldn't wait any longer. He found me on a messaging app and began to brag about how thoughtful and caring Victoria was to him. He even admitted he did it on purpose, that all those videos and photos on his feed were posted for me to see. Let me be honest with you. Vicky and I have known each other for a long time. She was only with you for your status. Did you really think she liked you? After that, Ethan sent me a video. It was dark, but I could still clearly hear Victoria's voice. "Sincere Harrison, he's just a tool to get me this position. How could I have feelings for a tool? Besides, he's nothing like you. He's not as obedient as you are, and not nearly as enthusiastic." The rest of the video was filled with sounds I couldn't bear to hear. I closed the video with a blank expression and saw a new message from Ethan. "Did you hear that, Sincere Harrison? You're just a tool. I'm the one big sis truly loves. If I were you, I'd just back off quietly. I had originally planned for an amicable split with Victoria, but if she couldn't control the people around her, she couldn't blame me for what came next." I didn't reply to Ethan. Instead, I forwarded the video he sent me, along with screenshots of his feed, to Victoria's dear older brother, Jacob Sutherland. I had a feeling Jacob would be very pleased with the gift I sent him. Chapter 7. Jacob Sutherland and his mother had always despised Victoria and hers. Having received such explosive material, they naturally weren't going to sit on it. The next day, the obscene videos and recordings of Victoria and Ethan were all over the internet. I took the opportunity to publicly announce that my engagement with Victoria was off. An engaged woman, who also happened to be a company president, having an affair. It was huge gossip, the kind of story office workers would laugh about over lunch for weeks. Instantly, the Sutherland Company became the laughingstock of the business world. Mr. Sutherland was furious about the scandal. Although Jacob also got an earful, it was Victoria who was stripped of her presidency, falling from grace overnight. She tried to find me, camping outside our house, desperate to see me just once. I was out shopping with my mother when Victoria caught me. She no longer had the confident air of a president. Her face was pale and her eyes were swollen like walnuts. The moment she saw me, her eyes lit up. Sincere, wait, listen to me. Victoria tried to catch up to me, but in her haste she tripped over her own feet and fell flat on her face. My mother frowned and was about to say something, but I stopped her. I gently patted her hand to calm her, then walked towards Victoria. Standing over her, I looked down at her pathetic state, but I felt no sense of ridicule. It was like looking at a stranger. My heart was completely unmoved. Victoria looked up, her face scraped and bleeding slightly. Seeing me, her eyes lit up again, her smile filled with a sliver of hope. It was as if she had seen her last chance. Sincere, I knew it. You do still care about me, don't you? I promise. I'll never do anything like that again. Please, Sincere. Just give me one more chance. Tears streamed from Victoria's eyes. She sobbed, a picture of pitiful vulnerability. But to me, they were just crocodile tears. Over the past few days, I had someone investigate how Victoria and Ethan met. Just as Ethan had said, he and Victoria had known each other even before she and I met, though they weren't together back then. But I couldn't help but wonder if my resemblance to Ethan was part of the reason Victoria had pursued me. One thing was certain, Victoria didn't love me. She might have loved this face, or perhaps the Harrison family behind me, but it was never me. And if Ethan, in his ambition, had never added me on the messaging app, if I had never found out about all this, perhaps I would still be abroad right now, worrying myself sick over Victoria's unanswered calls. Victoria. Her eyes lit up as she looked at me with anticipation. If you would stop harassing me, I might actually have a shred of respect for you. You did what you did. Since you had the nerve to do it, why don't you have the courage to face the consequences? Do you know, just looking at you now makes me sick. With every word I spoke, Victoria's face grew paler. I ignored her despairing gaze and turned to walk away with my mother. The scandal involving Victoria and Ethan continued to escalate online. Someone even dug up the fact that Victoria's mother had married into the family as the other woman. The phrase like mother, like daughter spread like wildfire, dragging them both down to hell. But the most sensational development was when someone posted old photos of Victoria's mother, identifying her as a former student of a finishing school for social climbers. Everything she had learned was for the sole purpose of marrying into a wealthy family. Well, that settled it. Any claim Victoria had that her parents were in love was now exposed as a long conspired plot. And Mr. Sutherland, who had always believed Victoria's mother was his soulmate, I wondered how he would handle the truth. At least in the photos leaked by the media, Mr. Sutherland looked exceptionally grim. Even more surprisingly, it turned out that the man who looked so much like me was also a product of a social climbing academy. So, it was a case of what goes around, comes around. In the end, they were left with nothing. The day before I was scheduled to fly back to school, I heard that Mr. Sutherland had divorced Victoria's mother. Not only that, but as if he'd had a sudden epiphany, he began trying to win back Jacob Sutherland's mother. How that ended, I never found out. Just before I boarded my flight, I received a message from Jacob Sutherland. He had now rightfully inherited his father's company and no longer had to live under the shadow of his stepmother. His own bright future was just beginning. Thank you. Looking at the message on my phone screen, the corner of my mouth twitched into a smile. At least Ethan Ford had done one good thing. All those things he had recorded had proven useful after all. Chapter 8. After returning to the university, I threw myself into my academic research, paying no mind to matters back home. Only when I spoke with my mother on the phone would she occasionally bring it up. After her mother's divorce from Mr. Sutherland, Victoria was left with nothing. Falling from the clouds overnight, her temper grew increasingly volatile. To make matters worse, even Ethan Ford had dumped her for another wealthy woman. Victoria, now pregnant, went to confront Ethan, only to be thrown out. She not only lost her boyfriend but also miscarried the baby. After that, Victoria became somewhat unhinged, telling everyone she met that she was a president and her boyfriend was studying abroad. Her mother, not wanting to be saddled with such a burden, threw Victoria out of the house. As for Ethan, his life wasn't much better. The new sugar mommy he'd found was notorious in their circle for her sadistic tendencies and tortured him relentlessly. Eventually, unable to bear it any longer, he murdered her and was arrested. My mother said it seemed he was sentenced to life in prison. I listened to it all like a work of fiction, clucking my tongue in amazement. A year later, my research was complete. My achievements abroad made me the youngest distinguished professor upon my return home. I had even left my name in the annals of my field of research. Half a year after that, I met a woman at the university. Like me, she had also studied abroad. We were a perfect match in every way, from our family backgrounds to our life experiences. We naturally became a couple. She was different from Victoria. She wasn't overly clingy, nor did she ask questions that were impossible to answer. Being with her felt like being with a long married couple. Everything was just right. Because of this, our journey from dating to engagement was exceptionally smooth. The day I accompanied her to look at wedding dresses, we encountered a beggar in tattered clothes at the entrance of the bridal shop. The beggar nearly bumped into her, but I was quick enough to pull my fiancée away. After making sure she was unharmed, I turned back, intending to scold the beggar. But then I saw a face that was both strange and familiar. Though the face was covered in a mix of new and old scars, I recognized her at once. It was Victoria. Victoria didn't seem to recognize me. Her eyes were vacant and lifeless, and she just kept muttering to herself. "My boyfriend is coming back from his studies soon. I'm a president, hee. You're all just jealous of me." "What's wrong?" my fiancée asked. "It's nothing." I averted my gaze and took my fiancé's hand, walking right past Victoria. After 8 years of a secret marriage, my wife signed a pair of twin brothers. As a gold medal agent, she poured all the company's resources into them. She even demanded I give up my spot on the New Year's Eve gala, but I refused. Later, when Ethan and Evan Marsh failed to get famous, they chose to commit suicide. In a fit of rage, Victoria Blackwood ran me over with her car repeatedly. "Sincere Sterling, this is all because of your selfishness, your desperate attempt to make a comeback. If you had just given them the performance slot earlier, Ethan would never have been driven to suicide." When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the eve of the crash. Without hesitation, I chose to file for divorce and start my own musical journey. 1. Big S. You must have had your hands full last night. Big B isn't easy to satisfy. How many times was it? 6, 7 times, I guess. My back is a little sore today. In the office, I watched Ethan and Evan Marsh openly taunting me. Victoria Blackwood pushed the door open, her eyes filled with contempt and displeasure the moment she saw me. "Sincere Sterling, I've already spoken with the directors. Ethan and Evan can take your place. Things change so fast in this industry. They are the rising stars, and you're a has-been." I nodded and replied calmly, "All right, I agree." Victoria was stunned. "Are you serious?" she asked, uncertain. "You worked so hard for this. It's your only chance for a comeback." "Yes, I know. But as you said, the old gives way to the new. Ethan and Evan certainly have potential." I said this without a hint of emotion. At the company, Victoria was my agent. We were just colleagues. No one knew we were married. She eyed me suspiciously. "It's for the best that you can see the big picture." I smiled and nodded. As I walked out of the office, I saw through the glass door as Ethan and Evan wrapped their arms around Victoria. In my last life, I didn't agree to Victoria's demand and instead practiced my song diligently. I got my spot on the New Year's Eve show as I'd hoped, and everyone at the company blamed me, calling me selfish and narrow-minded. I was back in the public eye, but despite the countless resources Victoria threw at Ethan and Evan, they failed to make a splash. Unable to handle the blow, Ethan committed suicide. Evan followed soon after, but not before sending a long message to Victoria. The gist of it was that because I hadn't given them that chance, they never got the exposure they needed during that primetime holiday slot. The pressure of reality became too much for them to bear. When Victoria found out, tears streamed down her face. She drove me to the outskirts of the city and ran me down with her car. "Sincere Sterling, I've hated you for so long. Marrying you was the biggest regret of my life. If you hadn't refused to give up the performance, why would they have killed themselves? They're dead, so you can die too." She ran over my body again and again, just for revenge. I returned home and looked at the countless song drafts I had written, letting out a self-deprecating laugh. Victoria had long stopped giving me any resources, deliberately putting my career on ice to make way for Ethan and Evan. She had even secretly given them the songs I wrote. Late that night, she dragged herself home exhausted and habitually ordered me around. "Sincere, get me a glass of water." When I didn't respond, she walked into the music room, her brow furrowed in warning. "You already agreed, so who are you putting on that long face for? Don't you forget, if it weren't for me, you'd probably be begging on the streets by now, too." For all these years, the copyrights to all my songs were in Victoria's hands, and I had signed a lifetime contract with her. She held my entire career in her grasp, which made her all the more reckless, certain I wouldn't dare do a thing. But 8 years ago, she was the one who pursued me. She admired my talent and said we would be a power couple, and for a while, I was a big star. But with the rise of short-form video, people's attention spans grew shorter. I slowly faded from the spotlight, and she found a pair of twin brothers. In my past life, I thought Victoria just wanted to promote new talent. I never imagined their relationship ran so deep. "What more do you want me to do?" I asked coldly. Victoria let out a scornful laugh. "Sincere, do you still think you're a top-tier singer? The industry needs new blood. You've been quiet for so long. What fans do you even have left?" "Right. So Ethan and Evan are more to your taste." She stood at the door, her face terrifyingly grim. Her phone rang and the voices of the two brothers came through. "Big B, we've been practicing all night, but the director still says it's not good enough. Did Sincere Sterling say something? Is that why they're targeting us?" Victoria shot me a hateful glare before speaking into the phone. "Don't worry. As long as I'm here, no one will bully you." Watching her leave, I called my lawyer. I wanted a divorce, and I wanted out of my contract. The next day, Victoria found me and said matter-of-factly, "Sincere, go and coach Ethan and Evan. Teach them everything you know." Hearing this, I felt an unprecedented sense of irony. "Why me? Didn't you already hire teachers for them?" She replied self-righteously. "Those teachers are incompetent and impatient. Ethan and Evan are still so young, and time is tight. Get to the practice room now." The teachers were excellent. It was Ethan and Evan who were a lost cause. They had no creative ability, so they used my songs, and Victoria had even put their names down as the composers. Not only was I supposed to tolerate her cheating on me with 2 guys, but I also had to hand over the songs I'd poured my heart and soul into. And now, she wanted me to teach them all my secrets. How could anyone be so shameless? But I didn't refuse. Instead, I smiled and said, "You're right. Ethan and Evan are so talented. Those people are just trying to rip you off." Victoria's expression was a mix of confidence and doting affection. Of course, the people I choose could never be that bad. I agreed and went to the practice room. In my last life, I had warned the brothers off, trying to assert my position. The result was Victoria disappearing for half a month and canceling or giving away all the opportunities I had worked hard to secure. This time, I took a different approach. "I don't think there's anything wrong with your singing. Those people are just being picky." Ethan's eyes lit up. After days of being put down, finally getting some validation made him ecstatic. "Sincere, are you serious? I mean, we were on a talent show. We've definitely got some ability." Evan didn't speak, but his eyes were shining too. I nodded, constantly affirming them. "Exactly. Your breathing is a bit unstable, but that's just your unique style. There are plenty of famous singers who mumble their words. You don't need to doubt yourselves." Ethan and Evan had been wary that I'd compete with them for Victoria's favor, but seeing my calm demeanor, they gradually let their guard down. I knew I couldn't stop them from performing at the New Year's Eve gala, but an overnight sensation, with their lack of talent, it was impossible. Under the guise of my praise, they grew even more arrogant. 3. During this time, Victoria was running around like a headless chicken, already starting to build hype for Ethan and Evan. Trending topics were arranged one after another, and behind-the-scenes clips of their practice sessions were released. But the more they marketed, the more the public's distaste grew. Just some ugly kids propped up by big money, with no looks or talent. I sat in a coffee shop. The lawyer across from me, Mr. Davies, stared at the documents I'd given him, his eyes wide with shock. "Mr. Sterling, this is a Pyrrhic victory. It'll hurt you almost as much as it hurts them. Are you sure about this?" "I'm sure." It was late when I returned home. For once, Victoria was there. "Where have you been? You don't have a job, yet you're still running around?" Hearing her impatient tone, I just smiled and retorted, "They're performing the day after tomorrow. What are you doing home? You think I want to be here? Some paparazzi leaked our marriage certificate today and blackmailed me for a hefty sum. Did you leak it? No one even knows we're married. 8 years of marriage. Even at the peak of my fame, I had wanted to go public, but Victoria refused. She said it was for my own good, but really she just wanted to get more out of me. She always claimed to be single, openly flirting with other men. Why would I do that? I asked. Isn't it because of Ethan? She trailed off. So she knew. Her heart had strayed a million miles away. I said nothing, just looked at her with calm eyes. I was the one who had tipped off the paparazzi. Victoria didn't say any more. She had poured all her money into them recently, and now with the blackmail payment there was nothing left. Her eyes darkened, as if she'd made a huge decision. You should go stay at the old place for a while. Fine. I moved out that night, back to the small apartment I'd bought before we were married. The next day I saw an online listing. Victoria was selling the house. She was willing to do anything to prevent any negative press for Ethan and Evan. On New Year's Eve I sat in front of the TV. When Ethan and Evan appeared, the live comments scrolled even faster. But it wasn't the overnight fame they had imagined. It was a flood of scandals and curses. I can't believe it. Singing like that and they still get on a stage this prestigious. They must have some serious backing. What mogul would be interested in this kind of third-rate goods? I heard this was originally Sincere Sterling's spot, but he got replaced at the last minute. This time Victoria got her wish. Ethan and Evan were on the show, but they were torn to shreds by the public. The moment they stepped off stage, they were trending for all the wrong reasons. Even paid trolls couldn't control the narrative. Big B, this is how Sincere taught us. He said it would be fine. Yeah, what are we supposed to do now? Fuming, Victoria stormed over to my place with the two brothers right after they got off stage. The door rattled from her pounding. Sincere Sterling. Get out here, you did this on purpose, didn't you? She screamed. I opened the door to face 3 pairs of eyes, wide with fury. Yes, you cheated on me during our marriage and tricked me into signing that contract. Now, I'm terminating the contract and filing for divorce. You dare? Victoria's eyes widened. The moment she lunged at me, she was surrounded by the pack of paparazzi I had waiting. 4. Ethan and Evan tried to run, but their path was completely blocked. Victoria Blackwood, you're Sincere Sterling's wife and agent, yet you're having an affair with these twin pretty boys. You even stole his opportunities for them. Can you tell us what you were thinking? Ethan was the first to react, playing the victim. You media vultures, don't take things out of context. My brother and I are just colleagues with Big B. Victoria's face was pale as she explained in a trembling voice, Sincere and I are indeed married. He hasn't been in a good state recently, so he voluntarily withdrew from the show. Ethan and Evan did not steal his spot. She shot me a look, expecting me to back her up. Instead, I said firmly, I've had a lot of free time recently. I'm in a great state. Victoria never expected me to say that. Faced with the barrage of cameras and microphones, she simply fainted. But as she collapsed to the floor, no one dared to catch her. Ethan and Evan exchanged a look before pulling out their phones to call for an ambulance. Meanwhile, I posted a message on my social media platform. "We were in love once. I'll handle this. To my fans who support me, wait for my new work." In just 1 minute, the post had over 10,000 comments. "Sincere, I listened to your songs all through middle school. I'm a casual fan, but I hope you can find a new life. Casual fan 1. I've been listening to your old albums for the past few years. Victoria Blackwood doesn't deserve you. Ethan and Evan Marsh, get out of the entertainment industry after so much planning. All the evidence was collected. It was time for them to pay the price." I leaned back on the sofa, the knot of anxiety in my chest finally loosening. My previous posts had gotten so few comments I thought I had no fans left. Seeing so much support now, a warm current flowed through me. I had a rare good night's sleep. On the first day of the new year, I went with my lawyer to find Victoria. She screamed at me maniacally, "Sincere Sterling, I thought you were a good man. The company is on the verge of collapse. Have you gone mad? What good does ruining me do you? Weren't you the one who agreed to give the opportunity to Ethan and Evan?" I said coldly. "I agreed they could be on the New Year's Eve gala, but I never agreed they could use my new song. Have you no shame? Using a song I worked so hard to create and putting the names of your 2 boy toys on it." Victoria's eyes were filled with pure hatred. "So what? You're in your 30s. Can you compare to an 18-year-old? Mr. Davies stepped forward and stated professionally, "Ms. Blackwood, you committed adultery during your marriage, and without the copyright holder's permission, you published and effectively stole Mr. Sterling's musical work. This constitutes copyright infringement. The contract with the exorbitant penalty clause is also problematic, as are the copyright claims. We will be filing a lawsuit." She gritted her teeth in disbelief. "You're going to sue me? Sincere Sterling, don't you forget I was the one who got you all those opportunities back in the day. Were you? You had this all planned from the start, and now you're trying to threaten me." I raised an eyebrow. Seeing my expression, she began to panic, her tone softening. "Sincere, you wouldn't do this to me. Let's just talk this out, can we?" I refused flatly. "There's nothing to talk about. Wait for the court summons." She scrambled out of bed, lost her footing, and fell to the floor. "It hurts, Sincere. Don't go. 5. I turned back to look. A trickle of blood was seeping from between Victoria's legs. She cried out in a panic. Doctor, my baby, save my baby," I scoffed. We hadn't been intimate in 3 years. She probably didn't even know whose child it was. As doctors and nurses rushed in, I turned and left. Soon after I got home, my phone was flooded with messages from Ethan and Evan. They accused me of being heartless, of leaving her to suffer when we were once husband and wife. I ignored the messages and immersed myself in creating my new album. A few days later, Ethan showed up at my door. "Sincere Sterling, haven't you made us miserable enough? Big B is still in the hospital trying to save the pregnancy, and you're still going to sue her?" I punched him square in the face. "What does your child have to do with me?" I said, my voice ice cold. "She's trying to save the pregnancy, and isn't Evan right there by her side?" Ethan staggered but managed to stay on his feet. He tried to fight back, but I slapped him so hard he slammed against the wall. "Sincere Sterling, you planned all of this, didn't you? You deliberately told us our singing was fine, that there was no problem. Now we're a public laughingstock, and this huge scandal is broken. How are we ever supposed to make a comeback?" I raised an eyebrow and sneered. "So? The 3 of you are trying to pin everything on me now?" Ethan didn't dare to strike back. He just stood there, propping himself up. "Big B won't let you get away with this. I'd love to see what she's going to do to me." Ethan took several steps back, a look of fear in his eyes. I cracked my knuckles. "Go back and tell Victoria Blackwood I'll see her in court," I said coldly. During the New Year holiday, as everyone was resting, the comments on my social media were all telling me not to forgive the scumbag woman and her boy toys. After the scandal broke, Ethan and Evan's careers came to a dead halt. After Ethan went back and tattled to Victoria, she called me in a rage. "Sincere Sterling, who gave you the right to hit him? Ethan was just upset on my behalf and you beat him into a pulp. How is that reasonable? A punch and a slap could cause serious injury? That's a new one on me. He came to my door looking for a fight. Is that my fault? What are you so upset about? You got on the gala, and now you're trending every day. Aren't you happy? Victoria was seething. Ethan did nothing wrong. All he did was ask you to pull out of the show. You're incredibly vindictive. You have no regard for all our years together. What years? I said calmly. What relationship is there between us? You're pregnant with someone else's child. Do you expect me to take responsibility for that? I could hear Evan's voice in the background. Big B. If Big S is so upset about it, my brother and I can leave. No, Victoria cried out in anguish. Even if I have nothing left, I will not give up on you. I promised I would make you huge stars. Evan, Ethan, you have to believe me. I cut in sarcastically. Aren't you famous enough? Everyone knows about the three of you. The agent who cheated with twins. How thrilling. Before they could respond, I hung up. Victoria checked out of the hospital that day, trying to find some opportunities for Ethan and Evan. But now everyone in the industry was just watching them as a joke. Seeing no other way, she came to find me again, this time with a completely different demeanor. 6. Sincere Sterling, can we please just talk? Victoria was truly at her wit's end. Even though she had launched many careers, now that she was mired in scandal, no one dared to associate with her. What talk? She just wanted me to come out and make her look good. What is there for you and me to talk about? Do we have to take this to court? Ethan and Evan's careers are just beginning. You can't do this. Victoria, what do their careers have to do with me? I'm not some fool who's going to tolerate you putting my career on ice while you cheat on me. When she first signed me, she was just an unknown agent. I earned her first big paycheck, which helped the company get off the ground. Victoria had long forgotten where she came from. She was arrogant and conceited. She roared at me, unwilling to accept defeat, so what, you're just going to destroy me? Destroy Ethan and Evan. Didn't you destroy me first? Don't talk to me about old times. There's been nothing between us for a long time. Seeing that I wouldn't back down, she tried a different tack. You can slander me, even send me to prison, but Ethan and Evan have nothing to do with this. Release a statement now and clear their names. I scoffed, not even sparing her a glance. Impossible. Victoria, you're not new to this industry. Can't you see the situation you're in? At this, she fell silent, staring at me with hatred for a long moment, looking like she was about to cause a scene. I called security and had her thrown out. While waiting for the court date, Victoria continued to run around for Ethan and Evan. She wouldn't give up, even if there was only a 1 in a million chance. At a business dinner, despite being pregnant, Victoria drank heavily, begging a brand representative for a deal, only to be rejected. She had a miscarriage. Using this as an excuse, she posted a long sob story online. She claimed I was cruel, that I had set a trap for them to fall into. She alleged the child she lost was mine, and that I had abandoned her. Victoria thought I would be concerned about my image and wouldn't get into an online flame war with her. But I directly posted the recordings of her and Ethan exposing her affair. At this point, what face did I have left to save? She had never once thought of me. The public was clear-eyed. The comments were a firestorm, all directed at Victoria, Ethan, and Evan. Before the trial, Victoria found me one last time. I have nothing left now. You must be happy. Really. I heard you sold your house and car to fund a short-form drama for Ethan and Evan. How is that nothing? Hearing this, she lunged at me, but I pushed her away. Victoria, why should I just take your abuse? I will not settle, and I will not forgive you. Her eyes were red as she looked up at me, her lips trembling. I don't need your forgiveness. I believe in them. They will go far. Oh, whatever you say. With that, I walked away. She scrambled up from the floor and yelled at my back. Sincere Sterling, you're just a selfish person. I was so wrong about you in my past life. Wasn't I the one who had been so wrong about her? I always thought there was still hope for us. But what was the result? She ran me over with her car, again and again. This time, I would show no mercy. Mr. Davies was very capable. Victoria's eloquent and manipulative arguments were useless. She stole my music, that was a fact, and I would not be paying the contract's penalty fee. 7. Victoria lost the case and was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Unwilling to accept the verdict, she appealed, insisting the songs were a gift. She lost again. In the courtroom, she hurled insults at me, blaming me for everything. I ignored her tirade and walked out, putting on my sunglasses. After months of preparation, my album was released. Within a week, it shot to the top of every chart. My career was reviving. Invitations for variety shows and collaborations from various platforms poured in. One day, as I returned to my RV, I heard some news. The short-form drama Victoria had sold everything to fund for Ethan and Evan before going to prison had been a total flop. Ethan had attempted suicide and was now listless and depressed after being rescued. Victoria, in prison, was heartbroken but helpless. I just laughed quietly. They really had no backbone. The two brothers had done everything to please Victoria for resources, thinking their path would be smooth, only to end up like this. They had no talent of their own, yet thought they could effortlessly switch between being singers and actors. How was that possible? During a break from filming a variety show, I had just gotten back to my RV when Evan burst in like a madman. "Sincere Sterling, my brother tried to kill himself. You're a murderer." My agent and assistant tried to throw him out, but I stopped them. "Evan, who was it that said they would do whatever it took to make you famous? It's not like Victoria's in prison forever. She was the one who hid the fact that she was married. Wasn't she just deceiving you? Besides, she's been in this industry for so long, you think she doesn't have a backup plan? If you're looking for revenge, you should settle your scores with the right person." Evan fell silent, standing there, lost in thought. He was right. He and his brother had bent over backward to please Victoria, and now they had nothing. I saw the hatred in his eyes and said nothing more. They never bothered me again, and the suicide theatrics stopped. I participated in music shows, rearranged songs, and constantly worked to increase my influence. Even if it meant sleeping only 4 hours a night, I didn't dare to slack off for a moment. Another New Year's Eve came, and I finally stood on the stage I'd dreamed of. Outside the studio, fans waved light sticks with my name on them. Standing on stage, my eyes filled with tears. I choked up as I finished my signature song and then went out to thank my fans. After signing autographs and handing out milk tea, I had just gotten home. In the hallway, I saw a familiar figure. Victoria was backing away in fear. "Ethan, you can't do this to me." Ethan laughed loudly, a crazed look in his eyes. "Then how do you want us to treat you? You promised us things. Why didn't you deliver?" "If it weren't for you, we would have been huge stars by now," Evan chimed in. "Victoria, our careers in entertainment are over, but you have to take responsibility for us." Victoria resisted. "I just got out of prison. I have nothing. How can I be responsible for you?" Ethan didn't care. He slapped her hard across the face. "Why do you think I'm still alive? If it wasn't for revenge, I would have died long ago. If you hadn't exaggerated your abilities and insisted on signing us, who knows, we might have been famous by now." Victoria was stunned by the slap, unable to believe that the sweet toy boy from before could turn into this monster. "Ethan, Evan, don't you have any feelings for me at all? I went to prison for you 8. You're just a two-timing bitch. Did you really think we would love you?" Ethan sneered. Evan rolled his eyes to the heavens. "Old woman, if you didn't have resources and money, do you think we would have licked your boots?" I started clapping slowly. What a show. When Victoria saw me, she rushed over. "Sincere, you're back, they're bullying me." I pushed her away. She froze for a few seconds, then quickly said I was wrong. "Please forgive me, okay?" But Ethan just laughed. "Victoria, do you really think Sincere Sterling would still want you? He's a star singer now, and you're a woman with a record. Just come with us. Whatever you have left, hurry up and give it to us," Evan said, grabbing Victoria's arm to drag her away. She struggled free, looking at me with tear-filled eyes, her voice pleading. "Sincere, I know I was foolish before. I've paid the price. I can't go with them. They won't let me go. You've made your comeback now. Please hire a bodyguard to protect me, okay? I'll be your agent again just like before." I laughed out loud, but my voice was ice cold. "Victoria, what dream are you still living in? Why would I be with you? You have them with you now. You should be very happy." Seeing my attitude, Ethan and his brother dragged her away without another word. She had sought my help, but how could I possibly have any feelings for her? On the third day of the new year, I was already back to work, preparing for this year's concert tour. A friend in the industry sent me a video. Ethan and Evan had beaten Victoria, and the whole affair ended up at the police station. They were convinced Victoria still had money hidden away, but the truth was she had been blinded by love and sold everything to try and make them famous. The brothers she once doted on now hated her with a passion. Seeing that they couldn't squeeze any more value out of her, Ethan turned on her first, with Evan close behind. Why would young, hot-headed toy boys ever truly fall for a woman 10 years their senior? I launched my concert tour for the year. To give back to my fans, the ticket prices were half the usual rate. The website crashed several times and countless fans flooded my social media comments. "You're my one and only idol. Please add more shows. I really can't get a ticket. I want to see you live. But the tickets are gone in a second, help a girl." Out seeing these comments, I simply added more shows. Having clawed my way back from the bottom, I cherished the support of my fans more than anything. My already packed schedule began to take a toll on my body. My fever hit 104 degrees, and my agent forced me to go to the hospital. Just as the IV drip was set up, I heard shouting from the hallway. "Victoria, how dare you run again? All I asked was for you to go out and earn some money. Can't you do something that simple?" "I don't owe you anything," she said, her voice filled with despair. "Why are you doing this to me?" "I'm calling the police. I'm going to find the police." Ethan sneered. "You're my girlfriend. No one can help you. You were the one who promised you'd make us famous and take care of us for life. How can you go back on your word now?" Evan added, "Victoria, didn't you say you'd do anything for us? Don't run away now." With my assistant's help, I walked out of my room. When Evan saw me, he froze for a second before speaking sarcastically. "Sincere Sterling, don't tell me you're going to play the hero and save the damsel in distress?" I made no effort to hide my intentions. Extending a hand in a dismissive gesture, I smiled. "Go ahead. I'm just here to watch the show." Victoria shook her head frantically. "Sincere, save me, 9. You too, carry on." The surrounding nurses were already used to it. The saga of Victoria and the Marsh brothers was infamous. Now they were in the hospital every other day. They would even start doing those things right in the hospital room. She was admitted today for vaginal bleeding. Who knows how rough they'd been. Victoria begged me, on the verge of kneeling. "Sincere, I truly know I was wrong. What I did before was terrible, but I'm at my wit's end now. If this goes on, I'm really going to die. They're not human." I took a step back, standing at the door of my room. "What does your life or death have to do with me? I'm just here as a patient. No, we were husband and wife. After all, how can you bear to watch me end up like this and not help? I know I was wrong. I was blinded by their good looks, but I have nothing now. Please, I'm begging you, help me, won't you?" I let out a cold laugh but didn't answer. Seeing this, Ethan kicked Victoria squarely. "Do you still think you're that gold medal agent? Get real." Victoria let out a pained cry. "I gave you 2 everything. Why won't you leave me alone? You made us a promise, so you have to be responsible." After watching the farce, I went back to my room and lay down. I still remembered my own brutal death in my past life. I had thought their love was so deep, but it was all just for personal gain. Victoria was seduced by the twins' beauty, seeking a new thrill. Now, it was just dogs eating dogs, while my career was on the rise. The next day, as I was preparing to be discharged, I saw all the medical staff rushing towards the roof. It turned out that last night Victoria couldn't take it anymore. While the Marsh brothers were sound asleep, she took a fruit knife and stabbed Ethan over 12 times. Evan had taken sleeping pills and was in a deep sleep. Victoria, in a blind rage, killed him too. But she didn't try to escape. She was standing on the hospital roof, intending to kill herself. All I want is to live a decent life. Is that too much to ask? Why does everyone have to push me to the brink? I only made one mistake through the crowd. Victoria saw me. She looked in my direction and cried out mournfully, "Sincere Sterling, do you hate me that much? Sending me to prison wasn't enough. You had to push me until I had no way out. We could have parted amicably, but you had to hunt me down and destroy me." I said nothing, just watched her quietly. The police were still trying to talk her down, to get her to calm down. But she wouldn't listen, just rambled on like a madwoman. "It doesn't matter. I killed both Ethan and Evan. They deserved it. They pimped me out to those old men, they gang raped me, they ruined my life." Then in front of everyone, she leaped from the roof, ending her own life. I only wanted to see their final outcome. Now that the dust had settled, I turned and left. In the end, didn't they bring all of this upon themselves? The brothers wanted a shortcut to fame. Victoria thought a pair of twins would be a thrill. In my last life, even at the very end, I still loved her. I thought that after so many years of marriage, there were still some feelings left. But being reborn, all I wanted was to hold my destiny firmly in my own hands. The name Victoria Blackwood would be nailed to the pillar of shame until the end of time, forever tied to Ethan and Evan Marsh. 10. Before the concert began, I received a package from Victoria. Inside was a long letter and our wedding rings. Sincere, whether you believe it or not, I really did love you once. I just don't know when I forgot how to. I refused to make our relationship public, and I welcomed the advances of others. I even thought that you would never leave me. Even when you first told me you wanted a divorce and were suing me, I thought it was impossible. But I was so terribly wrong. This ring, you made it yourself. I'm returning it to you now. I didn't read any further. The person was dead. Words were useless now. Heaven took pity on me and gave me a second chance. Victoria truly did regret it in the end, but only because she saw the true colors of Ethan and Evan. If she hadn't, she would never have chosen me again. She would have done the same as in my last life, run me down without a second thought. I threw the package, rings and all, into the trash. Taking out a sanitizing wipe, I carefully cleaned my fingers. My assistant came in. "Sincere, the concert is about to start. We should head out." I nodded. Waiting backstage, I could hear the roar of countless fans. Standing on the stage, looking out at the completely full venue, I began my first song. During the mass sing-along, I was so moved my eyes turned red and tears began to fall. I was a man who had clawed his way back from hell. How could I not cherish being loved by so many people again? During the intermission, I stood on stage and spoke from the heart to the audience. Thank you all so much for always supporting me, for being by my side. It's cold today, but I feel so warm because I have all of you standing behind me. Someone in the crowd shouted. "We will always support you." Wave after wave of shouts completely enveloped me. I love this stage, I love to sing. All my desperate efforts have finally brought me to the stage of my dreams. For the rest of my life, I poured all my energy into my career. Whenever someone asked if I planned to be single forever because of my previous marriage, I would always smile and say, "No, I think my life is great right now." Music is where I pour all my emotions. To be able to stand on this stage again is the greatest gift God could have given me. Many years later, I finally became an incredibly successful singer with a huge base of fans and broad public appeal.